I feel it. Oh, I feel it in my chest.
Hi, welcome back to my channel. This is Mindfully Bliss podcast, where I talk about my personal experiences. We delve into spiritual topics, religious topics, deciphering the two, and all things mystical, magical, metaphysical. I am obsessed with oracle cards, so welcome. It's been a little while since I've done an actual podcast where I just talk to you guys and share my heart with you. This one is going to be very powerful, and I have some notes just to kind of keep myself on track. This message, this story is very near and dear to my heart. It's something that I've battled with. I can't wait to delve in and explain all the craziness, all the goodness that has happened over the last few months and the last couple of years. So welcome, get cozy. I have my cozy blanket. I have a warm cup of honey, ginger, lime juice. If you're curious, just comment below and I'll give you all the details. It's spicy, it's zesty, so good. So settle in for story time with Stacy. Today, I'm actually going to be opening up with you about a crazy personal story of these cycles that keep happening to me. And I've been very unsure why. As we get into it, you'll see this pattern and you're going to be like, oh my God, how is this happening to you? This is a repeating cycle that I didn't understand why it was happening to me at the time. But now I am so 100% sure that this was to teach me to stand up for myself, to stand in my power, to speak my voice, to be authentic. Okay. And did it work out in my favor? One could say yes, one could say no. I think now, looking back on it, it definitely worked out in my favor. But when you're in the midst of these things happening, it's not going to feel like it. It's going to feel like your whole world is crashing down before your eyes. So before we get really into this, I just want you guys to keep in mind that this is my personal experience, okay? There are other people involved. There's always two sides to every story. I'm just sharing what happened to me, my feelings, what I experienced through this. I'm not going to be saying any names, just out of respect for the other women involved. I also want to state that I do not hate or wish ill things against either of these women that I speak about. I just feel strongly that I need to share this story in hopes that it can help somebody that could be going through these same cycles or similar cycles and don't really know how to get yourself back out of them. So we're going to be going over overcoming fear and embarrassment and betrayal. Cycles are tough. Like when you repeat cycles over and over again, it can be so frustrating and so confusing, but they're really there to teach us something. When we experience things over and over again and we become aware that it's the same similar pattern, it's really key to sit with it, figure it out, and gain the knowledge that you were supposed to, or learn the lesson, so to speak. So many of you know that I was about to embark on a business partnership with a dear friend of mine, a soul sister. And long story short, it fell through. So many things unfolded, and I'll take you kind of step by step through what kind of happened. Not all the details, but you know, some good details to give you a good picture of full picture of how things started and then how they kind of ended. So I had kept this secret for so long. And then finally I think it was January of this year, I finally announced that I had been asked to join a woman in her business. She tried to get this launched in 2023. And at about June of 2023 came to a standstill, and she wasn't really sure why. But she just kind of like let it go for, put a pin in it. And our relationship, really started taking off about summer of 2023. We became really, really close, really, really fast. It was like this relationship, you guys, was like magical. There were so many divine synchronicities and signs, and like all these things were pointing towards like, this is a strong friendship, like a soul contract type relationship. And so as it kind of blossomed and grew, she had asked me if I wanted to embark on this business with her, and that she had felt like she needed to do it with somebody. She didn't want to do it alone. And I was so over the moon. I was so excited. I was honored. I couldn't believe that, this was, this was being presented to me. And, I had let her know that I was in a very like slow down. So I just want to let you guys know this was in like December, I think, December of 2023, that she asked me to do this with her. And I'm one of those kinds of people who really sync up with nature. All of nature is going through a death period in the winter time, and then everything kind of blossoms and springs back up in the spring. So I believe that the new year really starts at the spring equinox. So just keep that in mind as I kind of share this story, because I had let her know that, one, I have never done this kind of work before, but that I was willing to learn. I've always been like an entrepreneur, but self-employed, freelance, things like that. Like I just worried about myself. I had no employees, like nothing like that. So I let her know that I was willing to learn, and also that I am in a state of resting, right? Because everything in nature is in a very restful period until the spring. So I just put that out there first and foremost, that I'm going to be in a very restful state until about spring. And she was like, great, awesome. Got everything kind of started. I got on the LLC, and we started planning, and it was so fun. So fun. And we were embarking on a women's networking and connection group. And we also, like, part of my dream was to have a consignment boutique where those women-owned businesses that handmade and curated goods could have a place to sell their beautiful items. And so we started, planning that, looking, getting all the details of the like connection networking side of it done. And then we started looking for spaces to have our boutique. And all of that was so fun. We did things so well together. We balanced each other out so well. It was just like amazing. And then we started looking at a couple places, and we ended up landing a spot in like the perfect part of town. It was a little bit smaller than we really wanted, but there's always room for growth. This was the first step in the right direction. And we had all the signs that just kind of said, go for it. And we did. And it was so exciting. We celebrated with our families. We had champagne and confetti. And some of you might have seen those celebratory posts. Like, I was on cloud nine, and it was so, so freaking fun. And then that's kind of when things things changed. And so I'm going to pause right here at this part of the story because I'm going to take you back to the very end of 2022 into the very beginning of 2023. Okay. September 2022. I met a woman and her kids and her sister and her kids at a park meetup. We also homeschool. And so this little homeschool family, I had found her little group on Facebook and decided to take a chance and met up with this group. And I loved this group because it was called at the time, I don't even know if she still does it, but it was called Mindful Kids Meetup. And it was really cool to do little techniques with our kids and like learning how to breathe properly and set mindful intentions and like things like that. It was just like really beautiful idea and concept for a homeschool group. And they were always outside. We always did everything like outside in nature, weather permitted, but it was just like the coolest thing. And we vibed really well. Our kids vibed really well together. It was just like, again, like this moment was just like magic. Like, oh, this woman like came into my life for a reason. It was really my first friend that was really into this like mystic, metaphysical things. She's experienced so much in, beyond our realm and beyond our perception. And like her stories and things that she experienced were just so fascinating. And I fell in love with her like immediately. She was a lot different than a lot of my other friends. She spoke her voice. She was very loud, like just different. And it just gave me this like different feeling. And we ended up spending quite a bit of time together. Our kids spent a lot of time together. It was just really good feeling days. And we started talking about doing like full moon circles and how we could incorporate like guided meditations and sound healing and like journal prompts and like make this like big ceremony together. And we were like, yeah, let's do it. She had also tried to do this in 2022 by herself, and she just really couldn't get it going. And so she's like, let's do this together. I think it'd be better to do it together. And I was like, yeah, I'm so down. Like I bought like a huge sound bowl kit and there were 7 sound bowls. So I was doing like a full chakra alignment sound healing and like had my whole setup. Like I was obsessed. Like you could probably, if you were to scroll down on my channel to like the first few videos, I have some sound healing videos that I just did from like my home. And like I was really into it. I mean, I'm still into sound healing and all those things, but at this point, like it was like this was going to be my business. And we like the masterminding and the planning was so fun, like, cheap pot coffee and putting up like doing our Squarespace and making these like vision boards. And like, it was just so freaking fun. Like such a fun time in my life. Like the things that we experienced together. Like one of the things that sticks out in my head so much is we went to this place called U Wellness in Yelm, Washington. And, they have this, what they call the blue room. And it's like, there's mirrors everywhere. So it's like a literal portal. And you have this blue light, and I forget exactly what the blue light is supposed to do for you. But anyways, you're in there and you can do it with 2 people. So we did it together. And you just have this like frequency going on inside of the room. And you just lay there with like a mask on, because obviously like the blue light, you don't want your eyes to be, getting that blue light. So we have masks on, and it's just like a meditation. So it was like 6 minutes under the blue light, and then it turns off, and then you have like the rest of the time until about like 25 minutes, I believe, that you're just sitting there in this, like the frequency. And it's just like a really beautiful concept to just absorb all those frequencies into your body. There's a glass pitcher of water in there absorbing all of that frequency as well. So afterwards you take, a big cup of water out with you, and then you get put into this other room just to kind of like wake up out of your, like, you are kind of in this like dazed feeling when you kind of come out of it. So that was really cool to experience with her. And a lot of, she's a very powerful like channeler and things like that. And so just the things that I experienced with her blew my mind, opened my mind to so many different things. And that was kind of like, I know now that she was put in my life to open myself to these other possibilities and ideas and realms and things like that. But so we started doing all that planning. That was like the fun part of it. And then we met with a yoga studio, and we literally locked in an entire year's worth of dates for our full moon ceremonies. Like, we were on cloud 9, like, holy crap, we're in a yoga studio. We have dates on the calendar. Like, we're locked in. Like in my mind, I was like, yes, this is it. We're making it. Like, oh, my life is going to change forever, right? Well, it did change forever, because after that, that's when things really started kind of going downhill. And there was just like little things after little things. Like, I started to feel like unseen, unheard, like my opinions just kind of stopped mattering, I guess. Like, I would say something and she would always be like, yeah, I can see that, but I think we should do it this way. That kind of like vibe where it's like they try to see your side of it, but they always want to take their side, their opinion, because they think it's better than yours. So this is where the downfall of this relationship started. I remember being at her house, and this is right before we got all of our dates locked in with the yoga studio. Okay. So I remember being at her house, and we're going over the calendar. Like, we have like 2 calendars out. We're going over dates. We're looking at like when the full moon actually is, and then like what weekend which weekend day we can, fit it in, to be as close to the full moon as possible. And so we were going through all of these calendars. We were going through like our personal calendars to make sure that we didn't have any like personal things going on. So we were like in deep with the calendars. Okay. I want to make that very clear. And so her husband was there, and we were going over April's full moon ceremony, and her husband pipes in and says, hey, you realize that we usually go to the lake this weekend. And she verbatim looks at him and says his name and says, this is my dream coming to fruition. Like, this is what I have been waiting like forever to do. Like, we can go a different weekend, or you can take the kids, but this is really important to me. And so I'm listening to this conversation, and I'm just sitting there. And so I'm like, are we good? Like, do you want to change it? And she's like, no. And so we literally like put that weekend down for April. And then we took all of our dates, because we went through the whole calendar, got all the dates, and then went to the yoga studio and locked them in. We went over the calendar, and then we even went into the yoga studio and put them in the yoga studio's calendar. So at this point, everything's ready to go. And it was about like a week or 2 after I get this voice memo, because we always did everything over voice messages so we could hear each other's voice, which is really great, I think, because, text messages can get misinterpreted and things like that. And so I love the voice memo idea, because you can actually hear someone's tone of voice and like, things like that. So this is all over voice memo, and I get this voice memo from her. that says something along the lines of she completely spaced completely spaced their trip to the lake over the April full moon ceremony. And that we either could reschedule it, or if I felt comfortable, I could do it myself. And so I kind of like paused, and I was really taken back because I specifically remember the conversation at her house with her husband. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay. So I respond, and I'm just like, okay, I'm a little bit confused because, I remember this conversation, with your husband, and that, we were completely aware that we were booking this full moon ceremony on here. But nonetheless, I was like, I'll think about it, and I will get back to you on if I feel comfortable putting on this ceremony myself, or if we'll just, push it back. Well, something in my tone or something in my verbiage or whatever really triggered her. And she got really defensive and very triggered. And she basically was saying, like, you're calling me a liar and all this jazz. And I was like, well, I'm not calling you a liar, but it definitely feels like I'm being lied to because we had this conversation, which I know you were completely aware of. So coming and telling me that you completely spaced it is a lie. Truth, flat out fact, okay? But nonetheless, she was triggered, and so she wanted nothing to do with me or the business together anymore. And she said that we were going to stick to the first full moon ceremony because it was already scheduled. People have already signed up and yada, yada. And then we would separate. And I sat there for a good day. I was really pissed off, you guys. I was crying, screaming, like I couldn't believe what was happening right then and there. It like, sorry, it kind of chokes me up. Because it's sad to me, honestly. It's sad to me that one little mishap changed the trajectory of everything. Everything that was magical between us, all the things we experienced together, all the good times was thrown in the trash because of one little incident. And I'm telling you, this was the first and only incident that ever happened between the two of us. And she was just wanted to throw it all away. And I was just kind of left dumbfounded and hurt and betrayed and like all the feels, you guys. And so I sat with it for a day or two, and I realized that there would be no point. There would be no point to put on a beautiful energy healing ceremony when the energy between her and I was so broken, so off. Like, I guarantee you, like, you can't fake energy, okay? You can put out a front, you can pretend you're happy and excited and all the things, but vibrations don't lie. Like, you cannot fake a vibration. You cannot fake frequency, okay? So I did not follow through with that ceremony. Our last voice memo was me basically saying that I was not going to do it, and that she can take full, reign of any of the full moon circles after that. Like, I just didn't want anything to do with it. And that was me protecting my peace. It was the first time I stood up for myself. And I mean, granted, when I was calling her out on the lie, that was me standing my ground too. And that's what I remember saying to her, actually, is like, hey, look, she's the one that taught me to stand in my truth. and stand up for myself. And that's one thing I remember her saying is, you're right. I did teach you that. But nonetheless, like things still went the way that they were. But that's a moment that I look back on and I was so proud of myself because I could have tucked my tail. I could have just shoved all my emotions, all my feelings down like we tend to do. We just push everything down and do things anyways. And I was like, absolutely not. Stacey, absolutely not. You're going to protect your peace. You're going to protect your energy and you're going to walk away. And if I could like describe it as like something similar, it was like a really hard breakup. It was one of those like breakups like that you'll just never forget. And I still don't. Like I still think about her almost on a daily basis. Because she was a big part of my awakening. And the things I experienced with her, I'll never forget. And so at those moments, I lost myself in this first cycle. So that was cycle 1 that I experienced. And I let myself go. I returned all of my sound bowls. I stopped doing oracle cards, even for myself. Like I stopped pulling cards for myself. I stopped everything, pretty much everything spiritual. And I want to kind of show you where my heart was at this time because I almost felt like God's source betrayed me. Like, where are you? You know, where are you, God? Why are you letting this happen to me? It's so easy for us humans to instantly go to that, right? Always put blame on somebody else. Always blame the higher power. Like, why aren't you here? Why aren't you protecting me? Why are you letting these bad things happen to me, right? It's easy to go down that path than to take accountability and look at what you are doing to your own self. How are you sabotaging your own self? And I want to say that is God's source helping. It might not feel like it, but we all know as parents, or, you know, there's that tough love, right? As a mom or a dad, you know that you don't just give your kids everything. You don't help in every single situation. Like we're trying to raise our children, right? We're trying to help them grow. And if we do everything for them, that's not really going to grow. So if you look at God, source, universe, higher intelligence, whatever you want to label that higher power, that creator being, you have to look at it the same way. We have to learn our lessons. We have to go through hardships and trials and tribulations to grow and to experience and to love deeper and to heal all the pokey parts of ourselves. So yeah, like I was saying, at that moment, I could not for the life of me understand why this was happening to me. So I was like, I did everything right. I did, like, what in the world? And sometimes now I know that it's not always about us, right? I'm learning now, and I will speak on this later. I have a note later on to talk about this, but I've now understood that my physical, like my energy, me as a being here, part of my purpose is I am a catalyst to other people's healing. I am the trigger to other people's healing. And I didn't understand this until about 6 or 7 months after this all happened. That's about how long it took me to heal, or to start healing, I should say. I grieved for 6 to 7 months. Like I said, I completely lost myself. I didn't know which way was up. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I just felt so lost and betrayed, like I said. And it hurt. And I just kind of sat in this hurt for so long, probably longer than I needed to. or probably longer than I should have, but it was the exact amount of time that I needed. That's when my friendship with this new woman started really getting deep. And she came into my life right as I was embarking on my healing journey from this past, downfall. So I felt really good. I was getting back into oracle cards. I was finding myself again. I was reconnecting back to spirit, back to the one. And I realized that, it's easy to put blame on her or God, but I finally started looking at myself and unlocking all these things within myself, questioning why I do certain things. And so this is when my healing journey really began. And this self-awareness of, every single person in our life is a mirrored reflection of us, a part of us. And so when I learned that and understood that, that's when everything changed. And I became so aware of every single person in my life and what they're bringing to my table, what they're mirroring to me, and what I need to heal in myself and what is not my energy. And realizing like there's, as an empath, I am an empath. I'm very intuitive, and I can feel so many people's energies, and I absorb so many people's energies. And I didn't really know this or understand this before. And so when I became very aware of this gift, I started using it to my advantage. And so this is when me and this new woman really started exploring things together and having like the best conversations. We had one of the most beautiful overnights, like slumber party, like adult woman slumber party, like that I've ever endured. Looking at it now, I think I took the signs differently. That's what's so funny is when we're seeing signs and synchronicities, we can take things a certain way. And I think we're supposed to. But once we come out of the lesson, it's interesting to look back on it. And I think what I was experiencing, because this was during the 11/11 portal. So this was November 11th of 2023. And like I literally lost my voice. And I think now some of the things that I shared in that experience, that overnight, I think I should have kept to myself. And I think now that was spirit like telling me to shut up, like stop telling all your secrets, stop, doing all these things and sharing your, all this stuff, right? So I think it was supposed to be like a zip your lip, is why I lost my voice. But it was, it was a cool experience. And I took it as something different then. So yeah, our friendship was blossoming. I was really kind of, we both, like our spiritual awakenings, we both started feeling like we needed to go to church. And so we had that in common. And then we were seeing like, we both experienced church hurt together. Not together, but like we both experienced church hurt. So we had that in common. And I had already started my path down a different way of thinking, a different way of connecting with God, source, universe. And I was sharing that knowledge and that wisdom with her, and it was like lighting her up, and I opened her up to a lot of different things, and kind of changed her belief system a bit. And so we just had all these connections and all these great times. And that's when she asked me to become a business partner with her. And so now we're back to where we left off. There were things that I was started coming up for me inside, feelings, and I've learned through with my relationship with my husband that we have inner dialogue. We have conversations with people inside of our head, and then we react to them inside of our head. So me and my husband had been working on this kind of mental compartmentalizing. Is that the word I'm looking for? Anyways, so we had been working on when those inner dialogues started happening, to stop and have the conversation with the real person, right? Instead of getting all up in our emotions about a conversation that didn't even exist. It only existed in your head. If that's happening to you, become aware of it, okay? Because that is self-sabotage. It's kind of similar to, this is just a little side note. It's kind of similar to when you wake up out of a bad dream, like say you're a female and you had a dream that your boyfriend or your husband cheated on you, and or your partner cheated on you, and you wake up and you're like pissed off at them, even though it didn't actually happen, but it felt like it happened in your dream. So then you're like holding it against them that day, and they're like, what the heck? I didn't even do anything. It's very similar to that. When you have that inner dialogue and those inner conversations, like a fight basically inside your head with that person, but it didn't actually involve the real like human person. I hope that made sense. So since we had been working on that in our relationship, I was very aware of it in like my friendships. And I think, so I'm starting to have these conversations because one, I still homeschool my daughter. I still do hair from home with some clients. And so I started having these feelings like I wanted to get a schedule kind of put in place, and like figuring out what our schedules are going to look like once the boutique is opened and the networking thing. So that way I can kind of still like navigate my life, my personal life, away from like the business part of it. And so we were picking up cabinets one morning, and I just, the one thing I want you guys to keep in mind is my whole mindset so far into this is I'm going into business with a friend, soul sister first, right? So I feel like I should be able to talk to this woman like a friend, like a soul sister, as well as a business partner. And so I had just expressed to her very lovingly, like we're just talking as friends in the truck, going to pick up cabinets for the boutique, right? Just setting the picture for you. And I just let her know, or I just, tell her, since I'm still in a season where my daughter is very young, she still wants me to take her night. Her bedtime is at 7. She still wants me to take her night most nights. And we as a family, the Acre family, very much focuses on togetherness. And so our family eats dinner at the dinner table every single night together. Every once in a while, we'll, have a movie night and we'll all be in the living room eating dinner. But for the most part, we're always sitting down at the dinner table together. Dinner is usually between 5:30 and 6. And that's just important to us. That's something that we focus on, and those are like boundaries in our lives. And so at this point, we hadn't even really like discussed like times that we were going to be opening, but I had seen something on like some paperwork that said we were going to be open like 10 to 6, like 5 days a week, I think. And so I just had, brought up that since I'm in this season of taking Kinsley to night still, and my husband works, a full-time job to support us. And part of my job as a stay-at-home mom and a work-from-home mom is to prep and have dinner ready. That's just how our family functions. And those are just things that we put in place for our family unit to work as a whole, and so that everybody's needs are met. And so I expressed to her that since I'm in that season still, if it would be okay, I should be open to her closing most of the nights, that I would, a couple nights a week, but that I would open majority until, we're into a different season. And she immediately just responds and says, well, I want time with my husband or with my family too. And I was like, absolutely, I understand that. And that's why we need to sit down and talk about schedules so that way we can both come to an agreement and have schedules that we're both happy with. I feel like that's a very normal thing to express to a friend, business partner, right? And at that time, after that, it was like, yeah, sure, great, let's plan to talk about it. Like nothing really came of it. But it's one thing that she ended up throwing in my face right before everything the night that everything fell through. And so that was one thing I had brought up. And then this leads into where the big downfall happened. When we signed the contract for our boutique space, the space owners, our landlord, had promised that they would do the floors for us. Well, lo and behold, a big, fiasco happened on their end with the city and whatnot, and so they had a lot of extra things put on their plate that they weren't prepared for financially, and so naturally they're like, the floors are going to have to wait. But on our side of it, we were like, oh my goodness, but we can't open our doors unless the floors get done. We can't even install our cabinetry or our cash wrap or any of this stuff until our floors get done. And so my husband's very handy. And I had full trust that he could lay these floors. I mean, it's a 295 square foot, square room, easy peasy, right? And he did 2 days worth of research on it, looked up the manufacturing floor, all these details, right? He's very detail oriented, and had me send over the materials that were needed for the specific flooring and whatnot. So I sent it to the landlord. And the day of the floors was an epic, crazy day. Nothing went right. And I was getting really frustrated. I was feeling my husband's frustration because the thing that I know about my husband is his biggest pet peeve is his time being wasted. Our time is something that we'll never get back, right? So when it's wasted, it's precious time. There's so many other things that he could have been doing. And there was all this back and forth. We had pulled the existing carpet up, and there was just a layer of old adhesive, right? And so we were contemplating ideas of are we going to scrape up the adhesive, or are we going to lay new I don't know what it's called anymore, but just a blank slate over it and then lay the floor over that. And I had just suggested, now I want to tell you, this was at 10:30 in the morning at this point. I had suggested that we just vacuum and clean up all the debris and stuff and just lay the new floor, over this existing adhesive. That it was going to be the most cost effective and easiest way to do it. And the landlord, she immediately shut it down and was like, no, we cannot do that. And I was like, okay. And so she gets her dad on the phone, who is supposedly this flooring professional. And I don't mean any disrespect by that. But you'll understand why I say supposedly, because that's what they were saying. We're going to wait for my dad to get here. He's a professional. He's laid floors his whole life. He's built houses his whole life, all this stuff. He was very glorified man, right? That we were waiting hours for. And so we're like, okay, well, it took 3 hours for him to show up. And this is where my frustration was going, because we're just sitting here, waiting, sitting ducks, doing nothing for 3 hours. And I can just feel my husband's energy radiating. He's just this is annoying. Oh my God. All right. And, so her dad finally gets there, and he's like, oh, I've never laid this kind of flooring before, but my professional opinion would be just lay it over the existing adhesive. You guys, I wanted to throw my hands up in the air. I did walk out. I walked out of the space for a quick second because, yes, I was so frustrated. My gut instinct was to just do it that way. And I was not heard or seen or even like given like two thoughts, right? But the professional came in and said the exact same thing. And then what's even more infuriating about this story, and I'm sorry if you guys, if this is boring for you, I apologize, but this is something really big in my life that happened, and I'm just really excited to share it. Or finally ready to share it, I should say. So anyways, he looks at the adhesive and all the materials that, you know, my husband had given the woman landlord. And he's like, oh, this isn't the right adhesive for this. You're going to need to go back to this hardware store and get X, Y, and Z and this tool to lay it out and like all this stuff. And so more time is wasted because she goes to the store and has to get all these things and brings them back. And meanwhile, like I'm looking at the back. Now we have two different kinds of adhesive. And I'm looking at the back of the one that her dad suggested she goes and gets. And it clearly states like that it is for felt back flooring. And the flooring that we were laying was fiberglass back. And so now I want to let you know that now the husband landlord, the woman landlord, and now the husband landlord are there too. And they're just making these snarky comments about it. And I'm like, all I'm doing is reading verbatim on the back of a freaking thing, right? And so now there's this quarrel between like which adhesive to use, which one's the right one. And like, it was just getting like out of control. So now we're like at 2:00 in the afternoon and the guys are just starting to lay the floors. And I'm like beet red, fuming. I'm not showing my frustration to the landlords, but to my husband, yes. To my supposedly like best friend, soul sister, yes. And so she's like, hey, let's go get a drink. The guys are starting to lay floors. Let's go get a drink and we can just kind of like digress, right? And so I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And so we leave and she's like being my soul sister, my best friend. She's understanding. It was a great time. And I say that because this is also another thing that she ends up throwing in my face the night that she tells me she doesn't want to be in business with me anymore. And so everything, we get back, the floors are almost laid, and everything between all of us now are just like peachy. At one point, I guess I forgot to say, at one point, because the time was getting so pushed back that we weren't going to be able to do the lobby that we had said that we were going to do also that day, for the landlord. And I had just stood in my power, in my businesswoman-esque-ness, not bitchy, not rude or any means, just very like straightforward to the point. And I just had said that because we were like hours past when we were supposed to start, that there wasn't going to be any time to do the lobby today. And that our priority was just to focus on our space so that way we could get our space up and open. And I guess she took offense to it and I had no idea. She ended up telling my business partner later that when Matt and I went to go get some lunch, and so I had taken that opportunity before they laid the floors or anything. I had taken the opportunity to just apologize for how I might have came across. Now, I didn't apologize for what I said because what I said was true. I stand by it, but I apologized for how she might have taken my tone or anything that could have made her feel a certain way. I apologized for it. So everything was cool. She accepted my apology. We went on our dandy ways. While my husband had texted me while we were out getting drinks that the woman landlord was like super micromanaging, and to the point where like her husband even had to say like, get out. We got this under control type of a thing. And so I found that really funny because when we came back, like she was so nice, like it was just funny. And so yeah, my point is everything was like peachy between all of us at the end of that night. The floors were laid, they were beautiful, like everything was great, right? The only thing that didn't get done was the lobby floor, which we had said that we would do it on another day. So I guess I found out the night that I met up with my business partner. Okay, hold on. We're going to pause. So that day, the day of the flooring, I had started feeling like I was starting to get sick. That just like that very first like onset of sickness, I was starting to feel it. And I was like, oh no, I hope this is just like the day I'm having. But nope. Very next day was Sunday and I was down for the count. I was so sick for like a week and a half actually. But because I was so sick, I couldn't obviously like do anything with the business, and other than like just like social media stuff when I felt like up for it. So while I was sick, a lot of things started coming up for me, and I had little things like little triggers for me. Was like one thing that she had said. I was working on getting a ice cone company to be outside of our business on tax day to do free snow cones. And it ended up being the tax day is like April 15th. So it's a Monday, which we typically weren't going to be open on Mondays. But I was like, oh, well, we could just kind of do, one extra day, one special day just for this to just, bring in some more business. And she would say things like, oh, maybe we should be open 7 days a week. And like, what? No, who wants to be open 7 days a week? Who wants to work so much? Like, these are the thoughts that are like going through my head. And I'm like, I still have to do hair until, like, this is one thing I had explained to her. Like, I still, like, my little bit of income that I do make is from doing hair from home. And so I can't just stop doing that because that pays for certain things in my family dynamic. And she was very aware, very like on board with that. And so when these kinds of things would be said, I would just be like, oh my goodness. And so while I was sick, these things were coming up and I was like, oh no, like I don't want to become a workaholic. I still want time to be myself and do all the things that I love for myself and spend time with my family and like my husband and like all this stuff. But like working 7 days a week, and that's just the boutique part of it. That wasn't the networking, connection group, putting on events for women-owned businesses. Like that part was going to take up time too. And so I just had all these like red flags flashing in my brain. And so while I was sick, I was voicing these to my business partner. Remember, my friend, my soul sister. And so I would just say things like, all I would ask would be for time to sit down to talk about these things. And so one of the things was like, again, I brought up the scheduling because the scheduling conversation happened like weeks before now this time. And so I was like, I think we should really sit down and talk about scheduling so that way I can really get an idea of what my life is going to look like with, having my daughter, homeschooling, still working behind the chair and doing all this stuff too. I just wanted to be able to start figuring out what that's going to look like. And I feel like that's just normal things. And then my role, one of my biggest roles with the company was going to be social media. Now this woman has told me repeatedly that she doesn't get social media. She doesn't understand the algorithms, things like that. And that because I've had 4 or 5 years in network marketing, social network marketing, social media marketing, that would be my role. And I was like, awesome. But then she would do certain things like on the social media that I didn't really like. Like I had a vision for what I wanted the social media platform to look like because I thought that was my role. And she would post things that I'm like, well, I would personally put that in a story, not as like a main post, like walking through like Home Depot with paint. Like that's a story, not like a main post, right? That's just my creative social media marketing ideas, right? And so I started feeling like I didn't know what my role was anymore, because she was like kind of just taking over at this point, like taking over everything, like every single detail was her way or the highway. When it came to paint colors, stenciling ideas, like all the stuff, it was like, oh yeah, I like that, but I think we should do it this way, right? So it started becoming this dynamic where I was becoming unseen, unheard again, like all these things. And so again, while I'm sick, I voiced to her that maybe we need to put a business plan in place, so that way I know what my specific role is and that she knows what her specific roles are, and that we don't step on each other's toes. And if there was certain things like that you wanted to do, like we could talk. And I will say communication is not her strong suit. And I know this now because when I sat across from her at Denny's, she had all these conversations with all these other people except me, her business partner, her friend, her soul sister. And then she made decisions based on those conversations and not with me. So communication is like the key. If you're ever going to embark on a business with anybody, like communication. I'm just going to say that. So she must have had all these thoughts going through her head, because so she's agreed. She's like, yeah, I think we need to sit down and have some conversations. So we got a date put on the calendar, and I was really excited. And she's like, when you feel better, we'll put this on the date, or put on the calendar tentatively, in case you're, still not feeling good. And I was like, great. And so one day, this was the day before that meetup. And I go to log in to the business's Instagram to post something. And I got a message that said, you've been logged out. Owner has changed the password. And you guys, I was so shocked. I was like, what the fuck? Why would she do this? And so I voice memoed her again, and I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, you're making decisions before we've even had a chance to talk face to face. And it escalated really fast to the point where I let my husband listen to all the voice memos, and he's like, you guys need to have this conversation tonight, because the next day Kinsley was going to have to be there too. And he was like, I really don't want Kinsley to be anywhere near this conversation and things like that. And so I was like, okay. And so I asked if she would be available that night to talk about it. And she's like, yeah, I don't think it should wait either. So we met up at a local Denny's, because couldn't think of any other place really that we didn't want to eat food, and somewhere that was respectable, just to like order a tea and then leave, kind of a thing, And so we do that, or we meet there, and she's like, well, you wanted to meet up. So what do you want to say? And I was like, well, I think what I wanted to say has escalated to something completely different. Because some of the things that she was saying to me over voice memo made it sound like she didn't want to be in business with me anymore. And where I was that I just wanted to sit with my business partner, my friend, my soul sister, and talk about schedules and talk about business plans and putting those things in place to protect all of us in this situation. And so I was like, well, I think you have more things to say, or it's escalated to a different position because now passwords are being changed. And that's when she just threw everything in my face that I lacked skill, and that I am not business professional, even though she was not there for the conversation. And she ended up telling me that for whatever reason, out of nowhere, decided to call the wife landlord again that night after I've apologized, after everything was already like hashed out and said. She just decided to call her to talk more about it. So now there's two people talking about a conversation that she wasn't even a part of. And so now there's all these like red flags and like, wow, like I wouldn't want to be in a partnership, business partnership with somebody like that. Like going behind my back. Now my business partner, my soul sister, my friends going behind my back and having conversations and talking about my behavior, even though she didn't even see my behavior. Like it's so wild. And I'm so thankful that my husband was in that room the whole time I had the conversation with the wife owner, because I wasn't like rude or disrespectful by any means. And he would tell me, he told me that I was a bitch to my former business partner. And so I know that he would tell me the truth. There was nothing there. And so, what's really sad to me is the fact that I was straight up and said that I've never done this kind of business before. It's all new to me. But that I was willing to learn. And so what I really want to say is I wasn't given the compassion and the grace and the teaching, right? She, for whatever reason, in her mind, saw red flags in me. And instead of coming to me with concerns, like a friend should, a soul sister would, right? If you unconditionally love somebody, you love them without conditions. And she kept saying like, that I didn't have what it takes and like all of these things. And it was like so demeaning and like so hurtful. And the fact that she knew my heart, like I had opened up to her so much about what previously happened to me in the year before embarking on a business. And I have to tell you guys, this was February 27th of this year, 2024. Which was like literally within days of my 1 year fail with my prior business partner. So I know this is a cycle repeating itself. And it's like insanity to me at this point, like how this is happening to me all over again and how she could know something so hurtful that happened to me and do it to me again, like in a worst possible way. Completely ripped my dream from underneath me. No explanation. Like later, a couple days after this. So at this point in my head, I was starting to get mean and vicious and my ego was starting to really like rage. And so instead of being hurtful and saying things that I would regret, I just got up and left. I was like, I'm just going to go. And I left because I wasn't going to sit there any longer and have somebody belittle me and tell me that I didn't have the skill when, one, I know what I'm capable of. I am a smart fucking woman and I am capable of anything that comes through my plate. As long as somebody is willing to teach me, to guide me, to come to me and say, hey, this is a little bit concerning. Maybe we should do it this way. Like I wasn't granted any of that. It was one strike, you're out. Like what the fuck, right? Like how is this happening to me? When I finally told some of my other friends around me, it took me a while. I sat for 2 days and cried and screamed and did all those things. I let myself feel every bit of emotion that I was feeling. And I even got to a point where I was asking God, like, why can't I have that special female friendship, the slumber party friendship, the closeness, that like sister bond? Like, why can't I have that? Why does every single friendship of mine get destroyed somehow? And that's when I was met with you're a catalyst, Stacy. You're either going to wake people up to their potential, you're going to vibe with them right away, or you're going to trigger the shit out of them. They're going to leave you and then deal with their own healing in their own way. And that has literally been the cycle of my friendships. Like even my maid of honor in my wedding in 2021 over political issues ended up not wanting to be my friend. And it's just like this pattern with women. And so the little whisper from spirit that says, you are literally the catalyst to people's spiritual awakenings, to their healing. And I just had to sit with that for a little while and be like, oh, okay, I guess I'm strong enough to endure all this. And so what's really beautiful about this, now we are a month to the day, as I'm recording this, a month to the day since it ended, since she looked at me in the face and said she didn't want to work with me anymore. And I've had so much soul searching and so much confirmation. And once I actually let myself feel the feelings, you guys, I felt so free. Like all the things that, she kept putting on kept feeling like chains. Like I was losing myself. And one thing I told her at the restaurant was that I had told her in the beginning that I was in a state of rest and that I didn't want to like go full force until springtime. But once all the like excitement of like getting the space happened, like I kind of like let that go. We were like at the shop all the time, like doing all these things, busy, right? And so I was actually becoming out of alignment with myself. And that's really the beautiful part. And thank you guys so much for enduring that story. But I felt like I had to share those big chunks of stories so you can see this cycle that was repeated and how similar they were and how there was a lesson that I had to learn. And so she had said to me at the restaurant that I was putting so many boundaries up in place, like I wouldn't work all the way, till certain times because I needed to leave to go make food for my family for dinner. Like things like that. I those are important things to me. And so I put up boundaries. I'm not going to work my ass off. Like that is not in alignment with me and my human design and who I am to my core. And when you can get to a place where you truly know you, nothing can come between that bond between you and yourself. And that's where the magic really starts to happen. And that's where this time things were so different. Did I let myself cry, scream, feel all the feels? Absolutely. For 2 or 3 days. And then this feeling of freedom washed over me. And I was like, thank you, God. Thank you for this happening to me. Because now I am so aware of my path. I am so aware that I am not meant to be confined to a schedule, to like all of these things. Like I want to go out into the forest. I want to pull oracle cards. I want to create videos. I want to share my voice. I want to be able to travel and do all these things. And if I would have continued on this path, those things might have came way later, maybe, but I foresee that things would have even gone worse. And I would have lost myself. And so when this disaster happened before my eyes, the one thing that changed was I didn't lose myself this time. The only thing that changed was that I wasn't as busy doing all that shit anymore. Like, that's the only thing that changed. I had my time back. I've been able to go on spontaneous trips with my daughter. Like, life got so fucking good. And and exciting. And like, it's so true. When one door closes, another one is ready to open, and you just have to be able to see it. And it's so crazy. So if you're one who's enduring these cycles after cycles and you're just like, you don't understand why, just sit with it. Ask yourself, ask God, your higher self, whatever you resonate with, ask and you shall receive, right? So ask why you're being put through these cycles. And for me, that's what I had to literally do. Why am I repeating a cycle where literally women are seeking me? Two women couldn't do something on their own. So they literally saw something in me to bring it to fruition. But because they're coming from a place of unhealed parts of them, me standing in my power triggered them. Because that's the two things. I had boundaries, I stood up for myself, and I stood in my power. That triggered them. And being able to understand why and understand who you are and your purpose here, things like that will help make it clear. So now coming out of all of that hardship and betrayal, and like, I was embarrassed, you guys, that week I was sick. I have to tell you, like, I got all the signs and confirmation that this was ending. I didn't really foresee it ending the way that it did, because I didn't know her heart. I was actually completely unaware of where her heart was at this time. She ended up getting like a business advisor behind my back, like, who then said, "Oh, you need to protect the business." So it just became business. Like, our friendship was no longer. As soon as we like signed the contract to the boutique, it was like the friendship was over. The soul sisterness was over. It was like business, business, business. It has to be very business-like. And then our friendship didn't matter anymore. And so that's where my personal opinion is where she went wrong. Is she was so focused on business and doing everything perfect and people pleasing. Like, pleasing every single person is impossible. You have to stand up for yourself. You have to please yourself first and foremost. And when you're constantly trying to appease every single person in your little like circle, you become different people with all of those people. And that's what I got to see. And when you can take yourself, when you can learn the power of taking yourself out of a situation and just being the observer, you can see the toxic traits in everybody, including yourself. And so I've gotten to sit with what I might have done. I've got to sit with where I know she went wrong, lack of communication, people pleasing. Like, she became different people with every single person. And became very clear. So yeah, that is my crazy ass story of the last 2 years. Like, I still sometimes look at it and I'm like baffled that I experienced two harsh lessons that could have potentially destroyed me. Like, getting to a place where you're like questioning why your worth and things like that. Oh my gosh. Like, now I sit here and I'm like, you are so worthy. Like, you just didn't need you just didn't need those people in your life. They were there to teach you the lesson. They were there, the karmic soul connection, to make sure that you know your power and things like that. And so I saw something yesterday that was really beautiful that said, redirection is just divine protection. And I resonated with that so well, Because when the first redirection happened, like I said, I lost myself, but I had to, because you have to lose yourself in order to find yourself. And you only find yourself at the darkest depths of your shadow. And when you can face your darkest demons, the worst things that have happened to you, you come out on the other side just new, refreshed, like new outlooks on life. Your consciousness has expanded to a whole nother level. And do I sit here and hold judgment towards them? No. No, I actually hold compassion because I can see their own trauma and I can see their own triggers and I can see the battles that they're going to have to face before they actually get to their true potential. And even like the most spiritual gurus, sometimes they act out of a place of ego. And those kinds of gurus will tell you that they're the right way. An actual spiritual teacher will tell you that there is no right or wrong way. There is only your way. And your way can change over time. You're never the same person, not today, tomorrow, or the next. You're always evolving. So it's okay if 1 month you're here and you're teaching from this level and something happens and you experience something and it brings you to this level of awareness. Now you're operating from here. Was this place wrong? No, it was just a step that you needed to take to get here. And so sharing this story with you guys, I just wanted to open my heart to share where I'm at, where my growth has come from, to shed some light on some pokey parts of life, how we can overcome them, and just trust that what you're going through, it's happening for you, not to you. When you think that things are happening to you, you're in a victim mentality. So my mindset when the first business in 2023 fell through, I was very much in a victim mentality, a victim mindset, where this is happening to me. I don't understand why this is happening to me. Pity, 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 right? And then to have it repeated, which to an average human, that could be destroying. Like, I could have taken the route of depression and suicidal thoughts, things like that. I'm not worthy. I'm not loved. You know, all the things, all the lower vibrational frequencies could have taken over. But I came out of it and I was like, no, this isn't going to stop me this time. I up-leveled my awareness. I up-leveled my consciousness and said, this is happening for me. Why is it happening for me? And I took it as like a kid eating candy. Like, I got so hyper-focused on myself, what I truly wanted in life. So now I know going forward, if somebody were to come in my life and offer me another like business plan type of a thing again, I have so many tools in my pocket now, you guys. I have learned so much. And I'm so proud of myself that I didn't let this huge moment in my life destroy me like it very well could have. No, no, no. It was just the fuel to the fire. It set my soul on fire, you guys. I knew what my passions was. I knew what my passions were. I knew what I was excited about. I knew what like psyched me up. And so now I've taken the time to really just focus on me and what I need and I want. And I want to encourage you guys to do the same thing. As long as we are protecting our peace, we are filling our cup up with love, then we can radiate it out. So you have to focus on yourself. You have to focus on all the whys. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Why do you think this way? I encourage you guys to go down that inner healing journey and question every single thing about you. If things come up and trigger you, that is telling you something. That is your body saying, oh, there's something unhealed in this. Because when you get triggered, it has nothing to do with the person that triggered you. Like I could say, I hate the sunshine. Well, that could trigger somebody who loves the sunshine. But that trigger has nothing to do with the person who said that they hated sunshine, right? That's only the issue of somebody who got triggered by it. Somebody else is just saying their truth. And when you stand in your truth and know your truth and know yourself, to know yourself is to trust yourself. To trust yourself is to know yourself. So if you get to that place, then you can just see that that person that's getting triggered by you, it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. All right, you guys, remember, redirection is just divine protection. I truly hope you enjoyed this episode. Till next time, you guys. Love you.